Joining us via Skype, James Hirsen. James, welcome back to America's Forum.
Well, it's great to be with you, JD. I love that slogan, by the way. I'm going to steal that.
Now,
That's a beauty.
Which slogan? The right man on the left coast?
The right man on the left coast.
Well, we'll have to work out the royalties for that. But my guy will call your guy and we'll talk about it. No, we're very glad to have you, and you are the right man to talk about this. I mean, the Silicon Valley. Now, Republicans made inroads there in the past. Dick Armey, when he was the House leader, would make a journey out there. And then Phil Crane actually had one of his old staffers who had risen to be a CEO of one of the Silicon Valley firms, and substantial funding came in that way. But I guess, James, it's not only campaign contributions, it's a solid base of support that Rand Paul is searching for. Do you think he's the kind of candidate nationally that the folks in Silicon Valley would take a look at, would support?
He is the best ever in terms of the worldview of those in the Silicon Valley for a host of reasons. I mean, it's always been an uphill battle for Republicans. We're talking about a place that went for Obama by 84%, the greater San Francisco area. However, his father, Ron Paul, is an internet celebrity on two issues that they care dearly about: privacy, surveillance on one side, and intellectual property on the other. They tend to go along with the Paul family, and particularly now Rand Paul's leanings. So the big block in the Silicon Valley, Ron Paul is absolutely right about that being a fertile field for getting constituents. The big block has been the fact that they have viewed the Republican Party as anti-science, as a party that has to continue to placate to the needs of its so-called creationists, religious right base. And that's what the Democrats have used to put up a wall between Republicans and Silicon Valley executives. But the timing's great because just like everyone else in business, the executives in Silicon Valley are privately grumbling about what has happened over the last 5 years, and particularly what has happened here in the state of California. We just had Toyota move their North American headquarters out of the state, a devastating blow to the state, just one of many businesses that have moved out. And believe me, the Silicon Valley, even though they sip their wine and eat their cheese, they still also look at the bottom line and understand what it's like to have hostility towards business.
So this is very interesting, and we should point out that move for Toyota costs California, but it benefits the Lone Star state of Texas and another possible presidential candidate in Governor Rick Perry. Let me turn to another subject now, James, and it's the subject playing out across basketball and talk radio. Donald Sterling, the Clippers owner, now the move to ban him for life from the NBA and all the ensuing free speech issues here. You have a background as an attorney, and you're for purposes of full disclosure, where do you come down on this issue? Is a privacy free speech issue at its base when you strip away all the reprehensible remarks on race?
Well, clearly there is. This is an amazing moment. I don't think this has ever happened before. A man receives a lifetime ban from a major sports association the same year that he received a Lifetime Achievement Award from a civil rights organization, the NAACP. So his remarks went viral, and the remarks are indefensible. But where did the remarks come from? They came from a private conversation in his girlfriend's home, a home he purchased, and that was not intended to be public. That's the kind of statement that would be litigated in a criminal case, that would be suppressed, arguably. And then this man, who has had basically a number of actions where he could have been brought up by the league and questioned and censured, but was tolerated simply because at one point in time, the Clippers were irrelevant because they were losing. At another point in time, he was too powerful, they thought. So I think there's hypocrisy. I think there's a grandstanding going on here to prove how compassionate someone is by condemning this man. And also, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar has come out and written an op-ed, and he brought up the very issue that you did, and that is the question of privacy, because of the fact that he distinguishes this remark as being something that was not intended to go public. And we have this problem now with technology where things are going public and going viral based on tabloid, operations that are out there in the 24-hour, very competitive news cycle trying to compete with each other.
Yeah, and the other thing that's happened in terms of press coverage, and the new technology has jacked it up exponentially, the game of gotcha. Oh, if we can just get somebody. And boy, when it comes to Donald Sterling, again, not high on my list of admirable figures. I've got real problems with what he said, but boy, no privacy there. However, as a guy who has had a fondness for lawsuits, I'm guessing he's going to end up back in court before this is all over. James, let me turn to Boffo box office, or what could be Boffo box office, if I can borrow the lexicon of Variety from years past. The New York Times, a new piece about the new Captain America movie set against the background of an infiltrated U.S. government with evil assassins and killer drones. Now the director of the film is saying it's inspired by, quote, the same sort of questions Barack Obama has to address, end quote. Is Mr. Obama so much at the forefront of the internet and fashionable culture in years past, is he about to fall behind in the media culture war?
Well, no, I think he has to an extent, and it's simply because there's only so much hype that people will accept, and particularly on the social media. There's one thing about the social media: it's very fast, it's very young, and sometimes it's ignorant, but it's honest. And so, for example, with some of the communication that's come out of the White House, late night comedians are making fun of it. The spin is not working because it's too blatant. You know, this recent spin about saying that the email that was discovered by Judicial Watch was not about Benghazi. It stretches credibility to the point where I think the culture is catching up. And Captain America, the source material of Captain America had taking place in World War II at a time where it was very clear there was good and evil, and the greatest generation had to rise up. And the character of Steve Rogers is part of this greatest generation. There's no way that story could be told without dealing with very conservative themes.
James Hirsen,
there they are.
Go ahead, sir. Complete your thought.
And there they are. And that's essentially my thought on that. And that's the reason you'll see a pattern that those movies that deal with the kind of stories that most of America can resonate with actually do the best at the box office, which include all the animated films, the superhero films that have these really timeless themes that take place in a moral universe. We want to see that, and we want to see some kind of moral resolution, the happy ending.
I don't know if she has a place in the, quote, moral universe, but Modo, Maureen Dowd, who brings the snark at the New York Times, she had a column this week essentially very critical of the president, telling him to stop whining because he's losing those who once supported him. And that gets back to the whole relationship of the mainstream media and this White House. The White House Correspondents' Dinner tomorrow night, it's when Hollywood and the glitterati make it to the banks of the Potomac. Joel McHale of Talk Soup is going to be hosting. What kind of jokes do you think we're going to get out of the president tomorrow night? We got about 30 seconds left.
Boy, it's hard to say, but Hollywood's been told to play it down, to not play a big role. The president, his people feel that he's been hurt by too much association with Hollywood, too many appearances on entertainment shows. But Joel McHale's a loose cannon, and nobody knows where he's going to go. And the president has the best comedy writers in the world helping him. So I think we can expect some funny.
Well, we'll see if it's a funny bit. We know you're the guy who can evaluate it for us, our right man on the left coast, James Hirsen, also writing a column for Newsmax.com. Thanks so much for your time. And we welcome your comments. Why don't you tweet us at Newsmax TV, #America's Forum.